And the problem is if you take the cylinder off, then there's no way to hold it still while trying to get these out. So you want to break this loose while it's...
Looks like a finger breaker.
Yeah, I know. Hey everyone, I'm out here doing some maintenance today on our 30-year-old antique skid steer. Seals started leaking on the right side lift cylinder, and a kit to fix it is about $20. Over the past 11 years of ownership, I've already replaced the seals in all the other 3 cylinders. So now we're down to just this one. I knew it was going to be happening in the near future where it was going to be leaking too bad to use it because I could see it was becoming damp around the seal essentially. Now that it's actually dripping, I'm going to go ahead and get that taken care of so that we can get back onto grading to put up our greenhouses. Over the pan. Still getting a little oil.
That just looks like a more modern version of the thing from Wizard of Oz. The little oil thing was like...
The Tin Man oiler. See, that's why it's got to be twisted up so it can fit through that little spot. This one's got to go in the spot below that one. Man, super snug. There's new seals. It's probably, yeah, it's really old and rotten.
Yeah, it just like
I think that's why it wouldn't bend. There it goes. And there it is. Until I get this pin started.
is also frozen clay.
Take a better look at it. This area right here is still frosted. I'm gonna have to come back. Now that I got some of the dirt off of it, I'll have to come back and finish this grading when it's thawed out. It's crazy.
This big pile back behind me is all of our compost. It's the topsoil and root mat that we pulled up last year from our land clearing and building our driveway. And it's been breaking down for about a year now. We're going to sift through it with the skid loader and get any big debris out of there. And then we're going to bucket it up into our greenhouses.
Slowly. Come on, slowly. Oh.
Goodness. Why did he jump?
Not under the bars. Okay, come on.
You could go for a ride, bud. No, let's go for a ride. Yeah. Do you have fun, bud?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Slowly.
How do you get so dusty in there?
That's just what the clay does here. That's really crappy soil when it does that. That's what causes the muskeg, because it just holds all the water when you get big patches of this stuff.
We just went through and finished raking out all of the mounds, picking out any of the root mat that hadn't broken down yet. We have a load to go dump, and then we're going to go pick up our steer manure and get that spread in here. We added a steer manure compost blend to all of our rows to give the plants a little bit more of a jump start and a little bit more nutrients to the soil. And now that that's all done, we're going to go ahead and put our high tunnels up.
True. What?
This bottom pin, it goes all the way down on. This top pin, we purchased these high tunnels over the winter in anticipation of putting them up this spring, and so we never opened the boxes. And when we opened up the second box for this high tunnel, we are missing 4 tubes for the greenhouse. So we had to go out this morning and pick up some conduit. So right now Chris is making tubes to fit in their place. Sure.
You want a nut?
Bolt.
one. Folded in general.
What is it?
It's literally chaga. He found chaga.
How did he find... It sounded like he was chewing on rubber over here.
I know. Is chaga okay for dogs to eat?
I don't know, but we're taking it away. Wow. How on earth? Where did this come from, bud? Where did this come from?
Are you a chaga finder? The L shape.
Look at the... How is he chewing it? This is supposed to be like hard as a rock.
Maybe it's not chaga. Looks like chaga.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if it is, it's probably super old because it doesn't just flake like that. It's usually like hard as a rock.
Quirky. I mean, it looks like chaga.
Because if not, it would have been like hard as a rock.
It might have already fallen like years ago.
Where did he find that?
I don't know.
Both of the frames are up, so it's time to go around and stake everything down. The high tunnels came with these stakes. These are not going to do anything with the winds that we have here. I probably wouldn't even stake down a tent to go camping in with these. So we got these anchors that we're going to drill into the ground. We're going to put 6 on each greenhouse and then put the covers on.
Go.
There. Yeah, that's perfect. Especially...
Looks like a glove.
Huh?
Looks like a glove. It doesn't go on that part. It can't.
The thing here.
You gotta remember we gotta do the other side yet too. Keep going.
I can't. It got stuck.
You almost had it.
I know. Yeah, but this has to kind of come down first. Yeah, right there. It is a gorgeous day today, and I'm out here in the greenhouses transplanting all of the tomatoes and peppers. It's about 65 degrees today. It's the hottest day that we've had so far this year. And I wanted to transplant these plants earlier, but the weather has fluctuated quite a bit. They've been hardening off for about 2 weeks, and 2 nights ago was their first night overnight outside in the greenhouse, and it was supposed to stay about 50 degrees and it plummeted down to 36 degrees. So we are in June, so that's a little low for June, but today's really warm. It's very hot in the greenhouses, and as long as it stays like this, I think that these plants are going to absolutely love it. All of the tomatoes are planted. I know they look a little sad right now. It is extremely warm out here. We have the windows open and the doors open on the greenhouse to let a little bit of airflow in, and all of the tomatoes were just watered as well. As I planted each of the tomatoes, I added a liquid fertilizer into the dirt, and I did that last year as well, but I think with this year's dirt being broken down as much as it is, as well as the steer manure compost and the fertilizer, I think they're going to do a lot better in here. This year I went with a Denali brand tomato, and they're all Alaska specific varieties. I went with Early to Nana, which those look the absolute best, and they're the ones mostly in this row, but generally all the way down at the end. They were a lot more bushy and a lot darker green as well. And they're all determinate varieties, but the other varieties that I got are Polar Star and Polar Beauty, and those really got leggy. And unfortunately, living in the RV, we just really don't have the space to start seedlings, and I really think that that plays a big role into how they look before they come out here. We even started the tomatoes about 3 weeks later this year than we did last year because they were indeterminate varieties last year, and they got really tall and outgrew the shelving unit really quickly. So this year, when I went with the Alaska variety, they're all determinate, so I knew they weren't going to get as tall, but they got really bushy in the RV, so they also had a lack of space. I went with a little over 40 tomato plants. There's 40 in here, and all of the rest that just really weren't looking that great will go in the other greenhouse with some of the other vegetables that I have. So that's all for the tomatoes. I have a ton of peppers to plant, so let's head over to the other greenhouse and get those planted. Over here in this greenhouse, it's all peppers. You may have noticed we have a lot of peppers and tomatoes, and that's because Chris and I eat a lot of tomato-based meals and a lot of meals with peppers. We absolutely love them. So we wanted to have enough plants to have enough of a supply to keep for the year for us to can. We also know that some of them just won't produce and some might die. So we wanted to make sure we had plenty so that way we have enough to put away for the year. I have 4 different types of peppers in here. I have 3 different species of bell pepper. I have California Wonder, which is the majority of this row, and then I have Pacific Hybrid down all the way at the end. Up here I have Ace Hybrid, that's another bell pepper, and then 3/4 of this row are jalapenos. Again, these are all an Alaska variety this year. The peppers just didn't do great last year, so I decided to go with Alaska specific cold hardy seeds, and they are looking really, really good this year. I'm super excited, so let's get these planted. A couple of years ago, I got this drill bit, I think off Amazon, and I got it when I was planting a bunch of little trees in Pennsylvania, and the ground there's like clay, and it's super hard and really hard to shovel in, and so I got this bit. It's specifically for planting your plants in the ground. With how soft the dirt is this year, it made this such a breeze to do all of the holes for the peppers. I think it took me like maybe less than 5 minutes to get the holes in the ground for 40 pepper plants.
You want this weather makes me really want to do that.
Swim? Makes me want to go.
Yeah.
It literally makes, I really want to go for like a nice dip in a pool right now.
Yeah, like I was thinking about that.
Yeah. I could really go for...
We could just sit down the valley in it and...
This is our smaller greenhouse that we set up last year, and in here I have all of the tomatoes that aren't looking so great. They're going to get these stronger trellises. In the other greenhouse we decided not to go with a trellis like this because it's hard to get behind it in the high tunnel and pick the tomatoes. We just went with a string line. I did do a horizontal string line instead of a vertical string line. We have little plastic clips that the tomatoes can hook to it, and if we need to add more string to it, we will. For the cucumbers, I decided to do those in the greenhouse this year. Last year I tried them outside of the greenhouse and they didn't make it through the first night because the temperatures dropped too low. So for their trellis, I just took a couple of the branches that from our land clearing, we let the goats peel all of the bark off, and they will work great for cucumber trellises. This garden over here is our herb garden, and there's a lot of different things in here that are all great companion plants with each other. We have rosemary, calendula, marigolds, bunching onions, chives, all kinds of stuff in here, so I'm excited to see how this grows. Now that the high tunnels are up and everything's planted in them and the garden, we wanted to take a minute to do a cost analysis of the garden and if gardening in Alaska is worth it. We do a cost analysis on every project that we do because we don't have a large budget and we want to make sure that what we're doing is cost effective. First, I want to start off about gardening in Pennsylvania. Back in Pennsylvania, we hardly had to add any amendments to the soil. We tilled it a little bit, added just a few amendments, got our plant starts from the Amish because back then we were so busy we really didn't have time for plant starts, and you could really just plant them and the environment was so good that they just grew and were very plentiful with the fruit that they produced. Out here, though, it's a lot different. The climate is colder, so there's a lot of things that just hardly grow, even in greenhouses here, at least in the area that we're in. And you have to take a little bit more time to add amendments to the soil because the soil is more acidic and has a lot different properties than the soil that we're used to. In terms of environment, this is the warmest day that we've felt in the almost 2 years that we've been here, and it's about 70 to 73 degrees, and it's very warm, but unfortunately it's rare for it to get that temperature here. The rest of the week it's supposed to be in the 50s again. So with that being said, tomatoes and peppers like we're trying to grow here just really won't grow without a greenhouse in our area. It just doesn't get warm enough for them. Another thing is here is a lot different than Pennsylvania as well, because while we did have white-tailed deer that would come through the yard, the dogs were always out in the yard and it always kept them away. Here, the moose are not afraid at all and they will just come and eat everything. So we have to have a fence up to keep out the moose and the abundance of bunnies that we have here. So let's get into how much we've invested into this project over the last year and a half, being as frugal as possible. For the 40 by 40 garden fencing that we installed, it cost us about $1,200. For these two high tunnels that we put up that are 26 feet each and the 20-foot high tunnel that we put up last year, we've spent roughly $650 on those. For our starter setup, we have trays, pots, lights, and starter soil, and that cost us roughly $230. The cheapest steer manure that we could find closest to us was roughly 2 hours away, and it was about $50 per skid steer bucket load. So that's why we ended up going with the pallet of steer manure last year and this year. We've only spent about $200 on that so far. The last thing I want to touch on is our topsoil. All of the topsoil that we're using is our own topsoil that we've scraped off during any project that we're doing here, and it's composting down all of the organics that are in there, the root mat and the moss, and this year it's turned into really nice rich soil. We do currently have 3 giant piles of that going, so we'll have a lot of topsoil over the next few years. In order to get all of that topsoil, we did have to run the skid loader and doing all of the land clearing, the gas for the saws, and fuel to haul all of the stumps away to the local farm with the truck. It's cost us roughly $300. Last year, our production of vegetables was not very good. It rained almost every day last summer and it was very chilly. The only things that really did well were our carrots, lettuce, kale, and sugar snap peas. We estimated that all of that yield in produce gave us about $250 worth of produce, which isn't good at all. This year, if all of our plants produce the maximum yield, we should be close to breaking even. Unfortunately, that seems pretty hopeful that everything will produce at max production. So if we even get half the yield from all of the plants, we should break even by the end of year 3. All in all, for our total gardening project, we spent roughly $2,500, which isn't cheap to get started. Unfortunately, this style high tunnel won't last forever, and we might have to invest in a regular style greenhouse later, but that does increase our cost, and that might mean that we might never break even in our gardening. Obviously, you can't beat the flavor and the health benefits of homegrown produce, but unfortunately, it just may not be cost effective for us in this area. But that's something to find out this year at the end of the gardening season, so we will keep you updated.